They say that violence is never the answer, but the same cannot be said for video games. The emerging popularity of the action film heavily inspired a new wave of video games with genres such as hack and slash, shoot 'em up, fighting, first-person shooter, beat 'em up, and many others entirely dedicated to violent content. Due to the advancing technological capabilities of arcade and video games, many in the late 80s and early 90s were alarmed at the increasingly realistic violence in such games. But in this new wave of video games, only one was considered too violent and controversial to even be published. But before we get there, we have to paint the scene. In response to parental concern and to the new trend of such content in the video game industry, the congressional hearings on video game violence in 1993 and 1994 took place hoping to set up an industry-regulated video game rating system similar to the one used for films. Among other games, the 1992 arcade release of Mortal Kombat and its 1993 home release garnered specific attention due to the general violence, but specifically due to the hyper-violent finishing moves called fatalities. Despite the congressional hearings failing to incentivize the video game industry to keep violence out of their games, an independent rating body called the Entertainment Software Rating Board was created. The ESRB required each video game to have its rating published on the game's packaging, along with the reasons for the ratings. Let's jump back to Mortal Kombat. Many claim the outrage and attention it received in those congressional hearings resulted in increased sales. In video games, violence, like sex, seems to sell. Fighting games in the 90s already had quite the legacy. Each developer and publisher attempted to one-up each other, either in the categories of the visuals or the gameplay or the technology, but later in the level of violence and underlying sexual themes. So, in the late 1990s, Paradox Development began working on a game for the original PlayStation called Earth Monster, which would be kind of a sports game surrounding a Mesoamerican contact sport, similar to basketball. The player would control a muscle-bound Aztec warrior that would kick and punch the opposition in order to score. The would-be publisher of the game, Virgin Interactive Entertainment, had a different vision. Thinking that increased combat and violence would help sales, they kept pushing Paradox Development into upping the ante in the violence department. Eventually, this pressure by Virgin reached a breaking point when Paradox transformed the entire game into a full-fledged fighting game. So with Paradox and Virgin's new fighting game, which was newly titled Thrill Kill, they decided to change the artistic direction to push the envelope in every possible way. First, on a technical basis. The goal of this project was to have up to 4 playable, 3-dimensional characters on the screen at the same time using the PlayStation multi-tap adapter, which would make this game one of, if not the first fighting game to achieve that feat. Secondly, in regards to sexual themes. The producer of this game provided inspiration for his desired art direction. This was in the form of BDSM-related fetish magazines and a pair of similar fetish DVDs. This resulted in the entire game receiving a BDSM theme. Lastly, in the category of depicted violence. Similar to Mortal Kombat's hyper-violent fatalities, Thrill Kill had hyper-violent finishing moves called, understandably, Thrill Kills. The gameplay did not have individual health bars that decrease when taking damage, but actually a kill meter that would fill up as damage was dealt. This damage was inflicted using a variety of basic moves with titles like, quote, Nutcracker, Suicide Drop, Bitch Slap, Sadomasochist, and Stump Squirt, end quote. And upon filling the kill meter, the associated player would unlock a thrill kill to eliminate the first opponent hit in a final bloody blow. Most of these were extremely violent, including kicking heads off of bodies, dismemberment, and bodies exploding into geysers of dark red blood, and some of which even featured sexual undertones. This gameplay was all tied together with a simple plot. A set of 10 depraved individuals who apparently did horrible things during their lives are sent to hell for punishment. There, a demon named Maruka forces them to fight each other in gruesome combat, promising the victor a reincarnation back on Earth. So why don't we meet this wacky cast of characters, and you think about what character you would choose if you were playing Thrill Kill? If you're looking for a former librarian turned murderous dominatrix, try the latex-clad and cattle prod-wielding Belladonna. Or if you prefer a pyromaniac arsonist completely engulfed in flame, the unlockable sub-boss Kane is the way to go. But say a cannibalistic serial killer redneck who fights with a severed leg catches your eye. There's always Cletus. A mutilating plastic surgeon with a bear trap for a mouth, Dr. Faustus, can always be a good choice. Or maybe Judas, an unlockable sub-boss who is a set of conjoined twins with no backstory at all, or also in hell for some reason. Want a bigger, stronger character? You can go Mammoth, a huge former postal worker who went crazy after getting fired and killed a bunch of people. Next in our lineup is our buddy Oddball, a former FBI serial killer profiler turned serial killer, wrapped in a straitjacket, even in eternal damnation. He is followed by the Imp, a little person with a Napoleon complex who hates people taller than him and has metal stilts grafted to his legs. Always a great option. A classic is Tormentor, a BDSM-themed former judge who would acquit criminals only to torture and kill them later. And last of the standard characters is Violet, a man-hating circus contortionist who is named after the character from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, for some reason. Then again, if you're sick of using the players and want to use the referee of this tournament, you can use our old demon friend Maruka, the final boss, and the one responsible for said tournament. She is unlockable after defeating the game. One final note, let's not forget the character only available in training mode, named the Gimp, inspired by the character of the same name from 1994's Pulp Fiction. You can tell a game with this premise and these characters is designed to one-up other titles and generate as much controversy as possible. Their goal, in addition to this, was to shoot for the first adults-only ESRB rating for violence in a fighting game, which is comparable to an X rating in the movie industry. Typically it is reserved specifically for pornographic games, but Virgin and Paradox were shooting to have Thrill Kill receive this rating specifically for violence. As intended, the ESRB would give Thrill Kill the AO rating it was seeking for violence, making it the 9th game ever to receive the AO rating and the first one ever to receive it on the basis of violence. To this day, it is only one of 3 games to receive that designation specifically for violence. Although the AO rating was the goal, in retrospect, companies discovered that many retailers would not stock AO games due to their controversial nature, and some themes had to be toned down in Thrill Kill to achieve that M for mature rating, similar to Mortal Kombat's. In 1998, Virgin and Paradox took Thrill Kill to E3, a huge video game industry event, where it already started gathering a large following. It seemed that the direction of the game was already paying off, but powers that be would be staunchly against Thrill Kill. The inevitable truth is Thrill Kill would never be published. Although set to release in October of 1998 and was 99% finished, Electronic Arts, or EA, a huge name in the video game industry even today, purchased Westwood Studios, a Las Vegas-based video game company that had merged with Virgin Interactive Entertainment in 1992. As a result, all titles the companies were working on came under the ownership of EA. After taking a look at Thrill Kill's gameplay and subject matter, the new owners deemed Thrill Kill too violent to publish even when other studios were offering to buy the rights from them and publish it under their names. EA made it publicly known that they not only did not want Thrill Kill published under their name, but it was too violent and controversial to be published at all. So, a nearly completed Thrill Kill with a set release date and an excited following would be cancelled. But that's not the end of this game's story. It would live on in another way. So, what happened to Thrill Kill after being cancelled? Well, due to the game's engine being capable, Paradox decided to reuse it for subsequent games. These would include 1999's Wu-Tang Shaolin Style, 2000's X-Men Mutant Academy and its 2001 sequel X-Men Mutant Academy 2, and the 2000 game Rock'em Sock'em Robots Arena. So, I guess it was Thrill Kill living on in a less controversial form. As for the game itself, the disgruntled developers decided to leak the entire game's code online so that those who were excited about the game's release would have a chance to play it, even if it involved downloading a ROM. Those files are still available and has been a popularly downloaded ROM to this day. That brings us to the end of Thrill Kill's tale. In retrospect, due to the models of the characters being three-dimensional and the limitations of the hardware at that time, the violence in the game seems cartoonish and rather tame compared to most games today. But Thrill Kill will live on as the game too violent to even be published. Thank you very much.